Hello and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast. The place where we share creative and inspiring learning in our schools. Season 1, Episode 0. Hello and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast with me, Mark Taylor. I'd like to welcome you to this first episode where I'd like to give you a bit of a brief history about me and why Education on Fire was created, and what it is that we're trying to create and who we're trying to support and how we can be a service to the education profession and teachers and schools. My background is in music, not in traditional teaching. I'm a professional musician, and I get to do the thing that I love every day of my life, and it's from that really, and just having that sense of understanding that being able to do what you enjoy all the time is the key to one, being happy, and also really having a story which enables you to want to get out of bed in the morning and do the very best that you can in life. And as teachers and educators, I think if we can introduce that as a concept in all of our children's and all of our classrooms, then the whole learning process becomes a completely different experience for everybody, both in terms of the people being taught and the people teaching. And I think from there we really have a chance of changing the education system really from the ground up and from the inside out. So the reason music is important to me is because it makes me feel like I'm alive. It makes me feel like it's something that I want to do. It's something I can share with the world, which is authentically me. It's not just a job, it's part of who I am and how I want to share who I am with the rest of the world. And I think finding that and giving the opportunity that to children in schools and our students is vitally important. And the only way that we can do that is to be able to expose them to lots of different things, because we don't know what's best for them. We don't know what direction they're going to go. We just really laying the foundations to experiences which they can hopefully will just ignite something in them and allow them just to follow their dreams and whatever their passions are. So if you've heard of Ken Robinson, you'll know that being creative is an incredibly important thing. It's certainly important to me, and I believe that music and drama and the arts and sport and all these things which are community-led and are very important in terms of giving people a chance to experience and feel life rather than it just being an academic focus. Music to me was something which I had to do when I went to secondary school. It was part of the curriculum, but rather than just being music, my forward-thinking school at the time had a band system where you had to learn a musical instrument, and at the time I wasn't particularly interested in doing that. And I decided that playing the drums was probably the best of a bad idea. And so when I went to secondary school at the age of 11, off I went to my first drum lesson and didn't really think much more of it. But it didn't take very long for me to realise, one, it was something I really enjoyed, and I had a very supportive drum teacher by the name of Eddie Clayton. And he offered me some individual lessons, and he just showed me the way to get involved in local ensembles, and the more I played, the more I enjoyed it, and the more I came to life, and that really was key. And the thing about music in the school that I was at is that there were lots of people there because you had to play music, that you saw a whole path, a whole progression. I saw people not just involved in school bands, but involved in county ensembles, and then going on to music college. And so while having a career in it wasn't necessarily the forefront of it, it was the fact that I could see the progression. I could see how I could follow and improve and work with better and better people and just enhance what I was doing. And so it wasn't a big leap to think that I could just be a musician, because I saw other people doing it. And it's one of the sad things at the moment that things like music are being slightly taken away from the curriculum, and the funding is being withdrawn, because I'm not sure if I was going into a school these days that whether that opportunity would still be there. So it's that background that I come from. The teaching side is basically because I had a music education company for 10 years, where we used to go into schools and do whole class music of samba and African drumming and general music games. And the thing that we noticed by doing that is the fact that all the students are living in the now. They're all performing, even if it's just the first time they sit in a circle and clap rhythms all together, or introduce themselves by doing their name, and various different rhythm games that you can do. And they're a musician from that moment, and they feel a sense of something going on at that moment. It's not about learning things for the future, it's about creating something now. Um, and it was incredibly successful. And what happened was is we were approached by an organisation called musicteachers.co.uk, and also the Musicians Union here in the UK, and they had a project called The Art of Teaching, and they were basically just showing and exploring great teaching that was going on, and they asked if they could come and see some of our workshops. And so they did. They came along and they recorded them. And if you go to educationonfire.com, you'll see there's a link there to the 12 videos that we did for them. And it's just basic music, whole class music in a primary school. And it just takes you from those original rhythm games all the way through to actually having a piece of samba music all played as a whole class. And it was just what we were doing at the time. And then an amazing thing happened while it was put onto their Art of Teaching video stream there on YouTube. The particular sort of rhythm game ones that people were obviously looking to do in schools started to grow and started to grow. And all of a sudden, while all the other videos, both of ours and also the other teachers in different disciplines, were sort of steadily rising and having people looking in, our particular ones suddenly started to shoot, and all of a sudden, instead of thousands, it was tens of thousands, and then we started getting over 100,000, and then over 200,000, and over 250,000 views. And suddenly I started getting people contacting me saying, "Oh, I've really enjoyed this. We really like what you're doing. How can I recreate it in my school?" It's you don't need lots of instruments or anything. Just the basic principle seems like a really supportive thing for the children. So I was able to give advice and point people in the right direction. And I thought, well, for me, that's just something that I was doing. I was, as well as running Rhythmically Speaking, doing these workshops, I was also at the Lyceum School in London, which was very forward-thinking in the arts. They had lots of ensembles and lots of music going on there. And I thought, well, actually, I can just share that experience of music, but there must be other schools and other people out there who are doing the same sorts of things in different disciplines, whether it's sport or how they do their arts and how they do their academic subjects. How do they bring it all together? How do they use cross-curricular ideas where you're doing all sorts of disciplines at the same time? What is it that's getting children excited about their learning? So I thought that'd be a great thing to share, So Education on Fire really is just me going around different schools, different learning environments, sharing great practices where there are children just fully engaged, absolutely inspired in what they're doing, and sharing their story, really, sharing what it is that why it is that they created what they did, and why they think it works. That's a really, really important thing. It's about the positive aspects that we can bring and we can share. And also I wanted to find a way that would be supportive for you in terms of being able to create it in your school or in your classroom. And I'm going to have a person called Peter Cancel, who's an ex-head teacher and educationalist. And he's going to be a bit more pragmatic and be able to sort of share with you, ideas that come back from the interviews that I've done, and just sort of maybe explain how you can incorporate it into your classroom, or if it's a bigger project, how maybe you could approach your head teacher and say, "Look, I've come across this. I think it's a really good idea. I'm going to need some support in putting it together. What do you think?" And so from that sort of ex-head teacher role that he had, he can actually sort of hopefully point you in the right direction of the best way to approach it, so that it's not too scary, it's not too much of a leap from wherever you may be now. And if you happen to be a school that's doing some incredible things that you'd like to share, then please get in touch, and we can find a way of coming to see you and sharing the great stuff that you do. And the whole idea is to build a community of people that feel supported and enthused, that while the education system at the moment is quite difficult in terms of time and all the things that you have to do, just the small things that you can do in terms of how we speak to people, how we come across, how we look after ourselves as teachers, which we can then also show our students what's important about that. If I'm looking after myself, if I'm being authentic in myself, then they'll pick up on that. And I think some of these unwritten things and unseen things that come across a bit more naturally, I think can make more difference than changing how we're going to teach any particular subject. So that's the basic background of Education on Fire and why it was created, and what we're going to try and achieve here. The other thing I'd like to say is that after the season 1, which is, I'm going to introduce Peter Cancel, I'm going to introduce Andrew Gardner, who has a book called Change Your Words, Change Your Life, and how her story works and how they created an incredible video which went viral and has now got over 25 million views. And I'm going to speaking to her and her husband Seth, and what they really believe is the heart of the small things that you can change that make a big difference, which is certainly applied to them. I'm going to be speaking to Kelly Long, who's got a great podcast called Inspiration for Teachers, and her experience of how podcasts and how her community is growing and supporting everybody. And also Lynn Hannay, who's the chair of the National Association for Primary Education, and I'm very honoured to be part of their National Council as well. So that'll be an interesting conversation. She was also the director of the school that I taught at in London, when I was doing my music classes there, and music was and the arts was such a high priority in their school and made such a difference to everyone, and get some sort of idea of why they created that. They actually started their school from scratch, and that was one of the first things they really wanted to make a priority, and we can delve into why that was important to them and what they felt the children really got from that. So I think the environment of a school is almost the starting point of everything. What it is that we're trying to get across to our pupils, and as they grow, before we start actually teaching them anything themselves. Children really, they tend to learn on their own. We don't teach them to walk, we don't teach them to talk necessarily. They just copy what we do, they follow what we do, and I think that doesn't stop when we go to school. We kind of get to the point where it's like we have to impart information, we have to give them what we think they need. I think that's starting to change now. I think people are starting to understand that actually we need to give them support, we need to give them understanding, we need to give them an environment that they can explore, and from there they can find out what it is that lights their fire and what their passion is. And with new ways of learning, such as the Khan Academy, where you have so many fantastic resources online, where you can learn at your own rate, where you can find all the things that you're interested in, but under the umbrella of a school, under the umbrella of a classroom, where a teacher is much a mentor, is a person of imparting information directly. It just seems to me that there's probably a lot of mileage in how schools are going to develop in that particular way. The internet these days is such a vast array of information, and we can find anything we want there. We can find fantastic resources, and just having an umbrella of these resources which are easily accessible and safe for everybody, I think is a really starting point, and part of what Education on Fire is going to be able to offer is we go around and start speaking to these people, the resources that they have, and also the resources that we're going to try and create to help you deliver these things. Anything which you think would be supportive, any type of resource which you haven't able to access easily, then let us know, and we'll see if we can find it for you, and or even put something together ourselves. So the way the podcast is going to work, from season 2 onwards, it's going to become a topic-based podcast. So after season 1, season 2 is going to be about ICT, computing. I've just been to the NAPE EdTech conference, where I've done some interviews with some people there. The other thing which I think is important is understanding how students are coming into the profession, how when they're newly qualified, how they're finding their new jobs, and how their careers progress. And we're going to be following some students in that path, and hopefully giving them some support, and also finding out what it is that they need, and just following their journey with them, really, to see what that's like, and whether the profession that they actually enter into is what it is that they thought it was as they started their journey. I think that'll be an interesting insight to what people believe education and learning is about to the actual current reality of what schools are. And if it's not the reality they're expecting, whether they can create that reality in the environment that they end up in, or whether they feel so stuck they can't do that. And hopefully we can show a picture of learning environments out there and different schools out there that actually do have that community and that creation that they're looking for. And on that community note, I know it's very hard sometimes if you're stuck in a school where you feel you're not supported, where you don't have any help and resources of things that you're looking for. We're really hoping that Education on Fire is going to be a place where you can feel supported, where there's going to be a lot of like-minded people, where you can get in touch and share your experiences. And so you don't have to look just inside the physical walls of your school for support. You can come out of that and through the podcast and through the website. Share your stories, share what it is that you need, and let's sort of build a community that can support each other in this sort of new way of positivity and a chance to really sort of shine in the kind of education system that we not would just like, but is actually available out there, with just exposure from all the people that we'll be interviewing and coming across. So thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe and have a look on educationonfire.com and see some of the resources that we have. As I said, the music education, music games and the samba videos are available online. If you sign up with your email address, you can download some support material for that as well. Get in touch, let us know what you think, and we'll look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you for listening to the Education on Fire podcast. For more information, please go to educationonfire.com.